Can a psychic be wrong about everything in your reading? The short answer is yes. The long answer is that person was probably not actually reading you. I'm Katie, I'm a psychic channeler, and welcome to my corner of the internet where I explore life through the lens of being a psychic. I recently got asked this question on TikTok in my comment section, and I have a lot of thoughts about it naturally, and it required an entire episode, not just a reply in the comments. So this entire episode is going to be about the nuance of psychics being wrong, psychic scammers, and more. The comment said, off topic, but is it possible for a psychic medium to be off about everything? She kept naming people or things I didn't connect with. Someone replied and said, OMG, that happened to me recently with a very popular medium who kept saying, who's John, who's Kyle, who's Jake? I'm like, girl, I don't know. Mind you, I'm Latina. I don't have any family members that have passed with American names. This is one of those questions that a lot of people in the industry tend to shy away from. I think because a lot of psychics feel if they admit they're wrong even a little bit, it might discredit them entirely. However, if you know me, you know I do not shy away from controversy and I do not shy away from hard questions. So let's talk about it. Can a psychic be wrong about everything? Yes, and that person was probably not actually reading you. I'm not in the business of saying whether someone's an actual psychic or not. It's not really my jam, not really my place to say. However, what I am in the business of is calling out unethical behavior and the TikTokification of psychics. I am a professional psychic channeler. I have been doing this for over 6 years. I've given 1,000 or more readings at this point, and this was long before I became one of the TikTok psychics. This was long before I gained a following on TikTok. For reference, I gained a following on TikTok this year in 2026. It's brand new. I have tons of experience outside of having a following on TikTok for being a psychic. So when I say that there's been this TikTokification of psychics, I mean that there are a lot of people that start to offer readings that don't have the proper training or education or mentorship. They discover, probably through TikTok, that they have psychic abilities or they learn how to read tarot, and then they just start giving readings. No education, no nothing. They just start taking people's money for it. This is a problem because these people have not learned, first of all, how to actually tap into someone else's energy, but also how to be objective in their readings. AKA, they're not actually reading you. This has been an issue in the industry long before TikTok. It's partially why psychics have such a reputation for being scammers. There are a lot of scammers. Like with any industry, there are people that prey on the vulnerable that just want to rob you blind and take your money and then call it a day. This is why I am a huge advocate for education. I think that there is way too much mystery surrounding being a psychic, the ethical way of giving readings, psychic abilities, all of it. And while a little bit of mystery comes with the territory because it is a spiritual business, too much mystery is making people way too vulnerable towards scammers. For example, I get 1 million messages a day about impersonators on TikTok, people pretending to be me, and they send these very gross DMs to people saying, oh, I felt so drawn to give you a reading, and then they say really generic messages about either a past loved one or an ex, and they poke at people's most vulnerable wounds, hoping that they think, A, it's actually me, and B, it resonates, and then they send them money, and then the scammer blocks them. If people were to understand that it is wildly unethical for anyone, but especially a psychic, to sort of coerce you through DMs into having a reading and read you without your permission, read you enough to send you a DM that feels specific to you, they would go ahead and understand from the jump, ooh, something doesn't feel right here because I know it's unethical for a psychic to read me without my permission. It would nip it in the bud right then and there. But instead, people don't know that. And then it adds this mystery of like, wow, like she really knows like what she's talking about. Maybe this is legit. Maybe I should send them money for a reading. A real psychic will not read you without permission. They will not give you an unsolicited reading. They're not going to, first of all, probably do a reading for free, but second of all, just sort of, again, coerce you into having a reading through DMs. It's just not a thing. I'm not saying that every person that gives a bad reading is a scammer. There's a difference between someone pretending to be a psychic and taking your money and someone who doesn't have the education and skill set to actually read you. But both are wildly unethical. All of this to say, can a psychic be wrong? Absolutely. And a real psychic will say that with their chest. A real psychic knows that they're going to get it wrong sometimes because we are not all-knowing beings, we're not God, and it's just the way the world turns. However, they will not be wrong about everything in your reading. They might get a detail wrong here and there, but they won't be just flat out wrong. A bulk of your reading should resonate with you. For example, I've given readings before where I think it's about their love life, but it actually fits perfectly in with their career. But that's the thing. Regardless of me thinking it's love, everything still makes perfect sense. The person I'm reading can take what I'm saying and fit it into their life perfectly. So what do I mean when I say that these psychics are not objective in their readings? When you get a reading with me, you're not talking to Katie. You're not getting advice from Katie. I am meant to be the go-between or the translator between you and the other side. It's like if we were in class and your spirit guides want to hand you a note. I grab the note and I pass it to you. Simple as that. But if you are not objective and you are not unbiased, you're going to filter that through your opinions, your thoughts, and your feelings, and then it's not an objective reading anymore. And then that's when it would be coming from me, Katie, not from your guides. So when someone is not unbiased in their delivery, they'll start to put their thoughts, their opinions into what's passed along. They insert themselves into the reading instead of stepping out of the way. For example, hypothetically, let's say someone does a reading on Mark Ruffalo. Now, Mark Ruffalo is very anti-ICE, he's very anti-MAGA, and he's very outspoken about it. One of the few people in Hollywood that is, right? So say someone posts a reading about him, and they say that he doesn't stand for anything he believes in. He's lying. He doesn't actually believe in that stuff. And then you do a little bit of digging on the person that said this about Mark Ruffalo, that claimed to be reading him. And that person that's claiming to be reading him seems to be MAGA adjacent. One could conclude that they might have let their own bias and own political views get in the way of them reading Mark Ruffalo. Now, we don't know for sure. I don't know for sure, obviously. But it does make you wonder. So that is an example of someone potentially, perhaps, hypothetically, maybe, letting their own bias get in between them and the messages that they've received. This is also why I do not post readings about Donald Trump or the future of America, because I'm very anti-MAGA. If you didn't know, you know now. And I'm very passionate about it. I get incredibly emotional about it, which makes it hard for me to objectively look at it and read and see what the future does hold for America. I hope that makes sense. Because I get asked a lot. I get asked a lot when it happens, and I'm a little bit too biased to actually clearly take a look around and see when it happens. It's also a lot more challenging to read people that you know because you have some skin in the game. My friends book readings with me, and I have to try really, really, really hard to make sure Katie is stepped out of the way for that reading, even though I feel emotionally invested in what they're asking because I care about them. It's the same reason why it's incredibly hard to read yourself. This is the first thing I tell people when they're trying to do psychic or intuitive development. The hardest thing you will ever do is read yourself. The easiest thing you will ever do is read a stranger. It's not impossible, but it's incredibly challenging. So to summarize, psychics can and will be wrong sometimes, but they'll not be wrong about everything. It's very vitally important that when you're getting a reading, if you start telling them like, no, that doesn't really make sense for me. I don't know who Jack is. That doesn't really resonate. I'm not sure what that could be about. It's very important that the person reading you is open to hearing that. If they start to just kind of push the messages on you or make you seem like you're crazy and they're right and you're wrong, that's a huge red flag and you should probably run. It doesn't necessarily mean they're a full-on scammer, but it probably means they're not actually reading you or not being objective and a clear channel during the reading, which is, as we said, unethical. Bare minimum, they should be open to constructive feedback. Bare minimum. I also want to add in here that I've been in situations where I don't get any messages for the person. I'm sitting there, I'm trying to read them, and it's just crickets. Maybe it hasn't been crickets the whole time, but they ask a specific question and I'm getting nothing about it. I tell them that. I don't make it up. I don't pull it out of my ass. I say, I'm really not getting anything about that. I'm sorry. And if they're truly unhappy, I give them their money back. I posted a TikTok a while back about this sort of dangerous archetype that we see often in the spiritual community. And it could be a psychic, a tarot reader, just a spiritual teacher, a leader, but it's always someone that acts like they have this secret key to the universe and they have the answers and they know everything. And you're not allowed to question them. And you're not allowed to question their authority. And they never admit when they're wrong. These are all the signs of a cult leader. And so I think the best way to combat this sort of archetype that we see over and over and over again is to be aware and be educated and go, that person has never said anything about how they've developed their psychic abilities. They've never said anything about being objective in readings. They've never set boundaries. And they're also openly DMing people with saying that they're reading them without their permission. Maybe I should think about that for a second. If you do want to book a reading with someone, I definitely recommend asking friends or acquaintances or even just the girls on TikTok who they use. Your surest bet for avoiding a scammer or someone that can't actually read is through word of mouth and someone saying, yeah, I had a really great reading with that person. Stay vigilant, stay safe, and look out for scammers. Thank you for stopping by my little corner of the internet. I'll see you soon.